This show is about freedom of speech.
I am an angry woman, yeah. I got a streak in my hair, yeah. I like to air my dirty laundry.
Hi, welcome to the Victoria Jackson Show. Being that the general election is just around the corner, we are devoting our attention the next several weeks to issues that are vital to the continuation of our society. With me today is a husband and wife team who are continuing the legacy of their son, Aaron Vaughn, a Navy SEAL Special Ops Chief who they lost in August of 2011. Thank you so much for being here. You're so brave, because if I was you, I would be in bed under the covers, smoking on pills, and really very bitter against the world and God. And I don't understand anything about the military or war. I know one thing: nobody wants or likes war, but we do have to have protection, right? Because we do have enemies. And you have a lot of information, and you have a story, and you share it, because I don't know how to talk military talk. So tell me about Aaron, your son.
Well, we like to just tell people most about Aaron. First and foremost is Aaron gave his heart to Christ when he was a young boy. And that radically changed everything about him. Because of that, he had a sense and a purpose, a direction for his life that most young people just don't seem to have at an early age. He was a person who saw the world in black and white. He never was troubled to identify and understand and accept the fact that there's evil in the world. And I think a lot of people have trouble with that. I think that's one of the problems we're suffering as a nation right now. But because he had that clarity, it made him a force to be reckoned with. He wasn't pushed around. And what I like to say about Aaron most of all is he never followed the crowd. People followed Aaron. And that's really the truth about him, because he just had such a secure sense of who he was and what he was created to be. I'll let Billy add to that.
First of all, thank you for having us here, Victoria. Mm-hmm. That means so much to us. But you said a while ago that you talked about God and being bitter against God. We're believers, and on the day that Aaron died, I realized very quickly, right after I got the news, that the Lord did always know this day would be here. Mm. And you weren't shocked, as I was. God was not shocked. Mm-hmm. He knew the day that He breathed breath into Aaron, when He would take that breath. And realizing and striving to understand who God is, and through Aaron's death, it's helped us so much that we know that our Father loved Aaron more than we could ever love Aaron. And I'm not saying it all hadn't been hard. I'm not saying it all it hadn't hurt, and it doesn't, and that it does continue to hurt. But there's comfort in the fact that the Lord always knew, and but. Just as Karen said, Aaron was a great man, a great Christian, and a great American.
See, this puts a face on the war. We're in a war, and our television and our news, it seems to pretend like we're not.
Right.
And if you don't know someone personally who's risking their life or being killed, then it's like no one even acknowledges that we're in a war. So you're putting a face on it, and you're showing people this is real. Now, tell me what happened on August 6th, 2011.
On August 6th, 2011, there was in the Tangi River Valley, Wardak Province, Afghanistan. The Rangers had gone out on an op, and they had been dropped off, and as they proceeded with their op, and as it was underway. In fact, some 3 to 3.5 hours into the op, they decided to send the SEALs in from another direction, another angle, because some of the insurgents, some of the Taliban had escaped. And so as they brought the chopper in without an escort, as it was flying at about 58 miles an hour, about 100 to 150 feet off the ground, preparing to land, let the SEALs get out and do their night's work, their op. It was hit by an RPG on the aft pylon. One of the rotor blades was struck, and part of that rotor blade, 10.5 feet or so, broke off, making the chopper go into a violent spin, and the aft pylon immediately came off, causing the front pylon to also come off. The chopper spun and crashed and exploded, and there were 30 American warriors on board whose lives were gone immediately.
Okay, and Aaron was one of them.
Aaron was.
So, how did they tell you that? Did somebody call you, or?
What happened? Billy was working away from home on the 6th, and he was actually about 3,500 miles away from home. And he called me at 7:30 in the morning. He said, "I have something to tell you, and I don't want to." In his voice, I could tell he was really disturbed. And he said that he'd been listening to the radio all morning, and they'd been reporting about a crash that had happened in Wardak Province, Afghanistan. And as the reports began to be a little more clear and clarified, he felt like it could possibly be Aaron's team because of the details of how they were working and where they were working. So he called me and asked me to start calling some of Aaron's friends and see if I could get any information. And make a long story short, it was less than an hour later when I was on the phone with Aaron's wife's father, and the military was actually at their door giving the news to her at that moment. And he just said, "Karen, listen to me. Aaron was on the helicopter, and there are no survivors." So, bless his heart, our oldest daughter, Tara, had to call him and tell him, "Daddy, he's dead." And it was 1 hour from the time we suspected it until the time we knew. So that was a blessing, I guess, to not have it strung out, like some people do over many hours. But, then we had to get him home. It was just the most horrible moment of our lives.
So here's the point. We all know that people die in war, but our problem we're facing is, I think our commander-in-chief is helping the enemy and not our military. We have a lot of facts to prove it, and we're going to say it on the internet. So, let me say a quote from your website. "All pilots were afraid of legalities they were bound to by the ROEs written and enforced by people in a peaceful, faraway land." What legalities were they afraid of?
Okay, and what I'm about to tell you is right from the military, okay? This is not what we've gotten as hearsay. It is from the investigation of the event. And first of all, this is the way that our commander-in-chief and our high-ups in the military are running this war. On the night of August the 6th, special operation, a mission that was risky enough that it had to be okayed out of theater. The Afghans, the policy of this war, the Afghan National Army, the Afghan National Police, and the Security Ministry are in on every op that takes place. This is the words of the military. They're in on the pre-op, they're in on the post-op. They know where the choppers will go. They know where they will leave from. And as you think about this, think about the overall picture. These are the same people who are killing our warriors in the green on blue right now. And so they're involved in the whole process. That's the words of the military. So, and indeed it was asked when the military guy stated, "This is the way we're running this war," and explained it. The question was asked, was this op run the same way? And he said, yes, it was. They were in on this op. Okay, that's the first thing. It's impossible. It is absolutely impossible to trust this ally/enemy that we have over there. You can't. Their very religion says, we will lie until the day that we can take advantage of it. They are they are commanded to do that. And so that's the first thing. The second thing, SEALs and Special Ops do their night ops in Special Ops choppers, okay? But
With special op pilots.
it was special op, you know, and
Whole
so
package.
from the beginning of that night, they were on a CH-47, when under normal conditions they would have been on an MH-47G, a Night Stalker, a Dark Horse chopper, equipped with pilots and technology to do the zero illumination light that the military stated that was present that night. Okay, the reason why they were on the CH-47 is because there are not enough of the MH-47Gs. And this is the words of the military to the families. They're not enough. They're not enough because we've stepped up special operations so much under the command of this commander-in-chief that we don't have enough choppers. Special ops choppers. Okay, that's the next thing.
Okay, so number one, our enemy knows everything we're going to do
Right.
because our military is telling them. And number two, they don't have the equipment they need.
Exactly.
Because this president would rather have food stamps go from 14 million people to, 17 million to 44 million than spend money on the military who is protecting us and risking their lives.
Well, we don't know if that's his exact statement or not, but remember, he is the boss, and he is responsible for it all. The third thing is, as this chopper came in, I told you earlier, there had been a 3.5-hour firefight going on in this valley. The military's words, the valley was on high alert. Okay? There was an AC-130 gunship in the air. There were 2 AH-64 helicopters in the air, already in the air from the Rangers op coming from going on this end. As I said, the CH-47 that the SEALs were on had no escort. Now, and it's policy that when the choppers go out at night, they have to have escorts. It had no escort, and here again, and this is an assumption because there wasn't enough available, but I don't know. But so it had no escort, so it came into land, 3.5-hour firefight going on, but because of the rules of engagement, our air weapons support in the air is not allowed to give any pre-assault fire to suppress the enemy so that the chopper can land safely. So the air weapon support sat there helplessly and watched this chopper land in the middle of a firefight with 30 Americans on board and be shot down.
And why can we not lay pre-assault fire? Because it's perceived as aggressive and damages our efforts to win the hearts and minds of our enemy.
Yeah.
So kill our sons and daughters then. I mean, that's your option. I mean, win their hearts and minds at the risk of killing our soldiers. So
This is what it has come to. This administration and our political leaders in the military are willing to sacrifice our most precious treasure, the blood of our warriors, in order to win the hearts and minds. And I don't believe the American citizens are, if they knew what was going on.
No, we don't know what's going on.
We didn't either.
So your story is really important because our commander-in-chief is working for the enemy. So the rules of engagement are helping our sons die. And
Can I say one other
Yeah,
thing about
yeah.
that? And when the chopper was shot down, even though there were three machines in the air that I've described, 2 of the 3 machines saw exactly the tower, described the tower that the RPGs were fired from. They did not take out the men who shot. They could see the men in the tower moving around, but they did not take the men out. Here again, because of the rules of engagement. There might be friendlies in the building below the tower. So because of the rules of engagement, they couldn't take a risk of killing the friendlies, even though they had just shot down an American chopper in a war zone. The rules of engagement, once again.
I would think if I was in the military, the morale would be pretty bad.
from what I understand, the morale is horrible.
And they're not allowed to say anything.
Right. They can't speak about it.
Okay, so you believe that Obama is purposely sending our men and women into danger without proper protection way before the Middle East fiasco in Egypt, Libya, and Yemen.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, the Obama administration relied on Egypt's new Muslim Brotherhood-backed government to ensure American security instead of its own military.
There again, the enemy, the Muslim enemy, who is allowed to lie up until the point that they're ready to act. We just keep on falling for the same thing over
It
and
kind
over.
of reminds me of Vietnam. It's like, go win the war, but we're tying your hands behind your back.
Exactly.
It's really, really bad.
We actually had a man, an admiral, 3-star admiral, when the families were brought into the debriefing to tell us what happened. The wives and the mothers and fathers at Virginia Beach. One of the fathers said, "Why didn't we use a drone strike that night?" And I'm not saying whether we should or shouldn't have, but the 3-star admiral actually turned around and addressed the grieving families and said, "Because we want to win their hearts and minds."
He said that.
He said that. And an American admiral, that's what he said to the grieving
That's
families.
what missionaries are for.
Or politicians.
Not military men.
If Aaron had wanted to win the hearts and minds of the enemy, he'd have joined the Peace Corps.
Right.
He
And-
wasn't trained to do that. None of those men were trained to do
Just
that.
think about this. As a SEAL, Aaron was trained some 4 years before he was ever allowed to deploy, because that's how long they train SEALs to be effective against the enemy they're going to fight. And then a 3-star admiral says, "We want to win their hearts and minds." The admirals, the military people who have this opinion are I believe, are going against our Constitution and going against, they're trying to protect our leader instead of the warriors
Their
who
men.
are under them
That's
that are
right.
fighting.
The politics.
They are.
Instead of our. Okay, this is very heavy stuff. When Bush was in office, there were 625 deaths in 5 years of the war. And under Obama, there's been 1,474. We'll put the graphic here. And also, you were saying wounded. Under Bush, there was 2,000, and now under Obama, there's been 12,000.
Yeah, in the 7 years of war in Afghanistan, while President Bush was commander-in-chief, there were 2,600 some odd soldiers wounded in action in 3 short years under President Obama, because these statistics are only good through February of 2012. It's 12,600 some odd wounded in action. Now you have to stop and analyze what is causing this. There's got to be an ideology. There's got to be something behind a 10,000 number difference in half the time, less than half the time. And this is what Billy and I have spent the last year basically examining, is what is this coin theory? How could we possibly win under it? We cannot. I mean, there's no way to, because when you can't even identify, when we have an administration who won't even call our enemy,
Right.
we have a big problem. Yet, we're sending our sons and daughters over there to die to protect us from the enemy that no one will call an enemy. It's not acceptable, period. Something has to change.
Okay, I want you to show us your tattoo and tell us the meaning of that.
Okay. It says in Greek, Molon Leve. And this is a tattoo that Aaron wore on his arm, and after Aaron died, I had it put on my arm. And it's called, these words are called the most famous battle cry in history. When the 300 Spartans were fighting the Persians and King Xerxes, when they finally had the 300 Spartans cornered and for their last stands, Xerxes respected the Spartans so much that he shouted to King Leonidas, "Lay down your weapons and live." King Leonidas' response back to him was Molon Leve, which is "come and take them." And that's it.
Okay, if you could say one thing to President Obama or the American people, Hillary Clinton or Aaron's immediate commander, look in the camera and tell them what you would say.
Let them fight or bring them home, period.
So, thanks for joining us. Spread the truth around. The mainstream media is not telling the truth. Thank you for telling the truth from a personal, close-up testimony. You guys are so awesome. I'm so sad. I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Nobody's telling the truth. It's like
No, they're not.
we're living
That's right.
in George
You're right.
Orwell's
Right,
day.
exactly. It is.
It's
And I'll tell you
Exactly.
something, to see you weep over it is like medicine to my soul. Because when people don't care,
Most of America doesn't care. They don't
Right.
care about anything. They don't care about this election.
right, right.
You know why? Because we're just all happy as
Right.
Americans. We can't.
The
help but think
military's
it's
gone to
always been
war.
This way, it'll always be this way.
They're saying the military's gone to war and America's gone shopping.
Yeah.
That's it. We pretend it's not going on. Except when Bush was president, that's all we heard about.
Yeah.
We watched every body bag come on. But now, no one talks about it, period. Because we certainly don't want to make Obama look bad.
That is the
you
most
know?
impressive thing, are the statistics. There has to be a reason, and nobody's asking the questions. It's
Okay.
not because our warriors have changed.
Right. Our
That's
strategy.
right. Well, we're getting the truth out here because we still have a speck of freedom of speech left. Maybe not for long. I want to thank the Vaughns for sharing their story. They're fighting a different war, but equally important one for America's heart and soul. To learn more about Aaron and the Vaughns' cause for the protection of our men and women in uniform, go to forOurSon.us. forOurSon.us, and spread the truth around.